there are some concepts out there that is like treating your face like a gym workout.
Ooh, I can do that.
Barbell Radio.
Hello, and thank you for joining me on Barbell Radio. This is your host, Cannon, and on this episode, I am joined by Dr. Bianca McCarthy, who is a PhD specializing in UV damage on the skin. She's such a fun person, and we go through a few topics in the discussion, including effects of sun exposure from athletes who trains and competes outdoors under the sun to competitors tanning inside via artificial UV, such as bodybuilders. Listening to this episode with Dr. McCarthy, you'll be able to know about the consequences of skin pigmentation or tanning that may be neglected for a lot of people, as well as learning about how to maintain overall skin health. In the description of this episode, I have written down timestamps, so you'll be able to skip to the parts where you want to listen. And for those people who are short on time, that may be very convenient for you. Now, without further ado, let's get into the episode.
Barbell Radio.
Okay, so today I am sitting here with Dr. Bianca McCarthy, who is a former researcher at Shiseido in UV damage. She is also a competitive powerlifter and, most importantly, a fellow Australian. Thank
G'day,
you for making
mate.
the time. G'day, mate. Now, before we get into the topics of our discussion, can you maybe explain some of like the skincare research that you've been involved in?
Sure. So I started off doing research in the role of vitamin D in skin cancer.
Okay.
So we were looking at how vitamin D could be used topically on the skin to prevent skin cancer and UV damage,
Right.
DNA damage, things like that. And then we looked at not just vitamin D, but also other compounds that behave like vitamin D, including natural extracts like curcumin.
Ooh,
Yeah.
what is that?
Curcumin, it's like the orange, it's what gives turmeric its yellow
Okay.
colour.
Right.
So it's like this really phytoactive compound
Right.
found in nature, which coincidentally behaves a little bit like vitamin D.
Ooh.
So we looked at that as a alternative for vitamin D because turns out applying vitamin D onto your skin is actually not so great for you.
Okay.
So we looked at that, and then we looked at like formulating sunscreens that had not only this physical UV blocking ability,
Right.
but also some sort of biological enhancement as well. So this kind of like super sunscreen
What?
that can activate vitamin D pathways to protect your skin
Right.
and also block out UV.
Oh.
So I did that, and then afterwards expanded my research to not looking at just UV damage, but also other forms of other wavelengths of light as well.
Right.
So visible light, infrared radiation, and how this damages the skin
That's really cool.
to give you wrinkles,
Right.
and pigmentation, and stuff like that.
Okay, so you might have to like dumb things down for me so that I can understand
Sure.
this episode. And I'm guessing like your interest in skincare stemmed from the fact that maybe you grew up in Australia where there's a lot of like outdoor activity, you know, and sun exposure as well. Is that right?
Yeah, absolutely. So my dad is like super white and and like many Australians, really susceptible to UV damage.
Right.
And growing up, he had like loads of squamous cell carcinomas, but basal cell carcinomas, and also melanoma cut out as well.
What?
So, but like, you know, that story is not unique. Like, you know,
Okay.
every second, I'm not sure the exact statistics.
Yeah.
But there's a lot of people in Australia that gets skin cancer.
Right.
I think it's like 1,000 cases per 100,000 people get melanoma.
Wow.
And way more for squamous cell carcinomas and basal cell carcinomas. So it's very, very common in Australia.
Right. And would you say that there is like a higher risk for people who are in like a specific geographic, position, like, you know, the latitude and the altitude as well? Does that have anything to do with like how much you're exposed to the sun and stuff like that?
Definitely. So Australia, especially Queensland,
Yeah.
just falls in that part of the world where there's a huge amount of UV exposure,
Right.
and very like high intensity UV exposure as well. So anywhere kind of close to the equator becomes really high risk.
Right.
Of course, the higher in altitude you go as well means you're closer to the sun.
Yep.
But really what makes it damaging, it's a combination of factors. It's not just where you live, but the type of skin you have.
Right.
So
Okay.
Australia's a really unfortunate situation because there's a lot of white people who live in a very high UV environment, which makes them very susceptible to getting skin cancer.
I think we'll be like getting into that as well. And okay, so today we'll be going through a few topics, and maybe Bianca can first tell us some of like the basic mechanisms or information about skin health and damage. And after that, we can move into more of like the closely related topics of skin and exercise.
Sure.
And then for that, I'm just thinking 3 topics. So first, maybe focus on sun exposure and its effect on the skin, whether that be from outdoor exposure, especially for like outdoor athletes such as surfers and runners and stuff. And also whether that be from indoor exposure, for example, like the use of tanning beds that a lot of recreational bodybuilders use. And then for the second topic, maybe we can discuss sweating and whether that is really the cause of like breakouts and acne. And lastly, maybe we can wrap up the discussion on some like direct, if there are, direct and indirect physiological effects on the skin. Does it sound okay?
You're going to have to talk me through that step by step. I've forgotten. What are we starting off with?
So first, can you maybe provide the listeners with some basic information on what causes skin damage?
Right.
Possibly like leading to more serious conditions such as like skin cancer, as you mentioned.
Right. So basically the skin is in, for simplicity's sake, let's just say 2 layers. So you've got your upper layer called the epidermis and your lower layer, which is the dermis.
Okay.
And the 2 layers are different in lots of different ways, but primarily it's just different cells that make up different layers.
Right.
And there's different thicknesses as well. It's like not so much an onion peel situation, but there's layers.
Yeah.
But basically what this all means is that when we are exposed to UV radiation, different types of UV penetrates the skin in different layers.
Right.
So the sun is broken down into mainly two different wavebands. There's UVA and UVB, which you've probably all heard of.
Yeah.
The sunlight is predominantly UVA and a small amount of UVB. And UVA is long wavelength, which means that it can penetrate deep into the deeper layers of the skin, so into the dermis.
Right.
UVB is shorter wavelength, which means that it can only reach the top layers of the skin. So UVA in the dermis has certain effects. UVB in the epidermis has different effects.
Right.
They're both not great at the end of the day.
Are there any like anything good about UV rays?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. So I said at the very beginning, my research interests initially were in vitamin D.
Yeah.
So sunlight is absolutely essential for vitamin D synthesis.
Okay.
So UVB, which there's a little bit of in the sunlight, is super important for vitamin D synthesis.
Okay.
And if you don't have any vitamin D, then you can get rickets, which is like your bones not forming properly.
Oh, really?
Yeah, it used to be a big thing like way back in like Industrial Revolution days. Yeah, the bowing of the feet. Like, I'm not sure if you've seen the photos, like people with their legs are kind of bowing.
Okay. Their legs are?
Yeah, their legs. Their legs haven't formed properly, so they kind of are curved. They're not straight. It's a bone.
I'll definitely look that up.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And the solution to this was really putting your babies outside for like a little bit of time every day.
Right.
And this was plus diet.
Yeah.
Changes to diet helps that. So yeah, that's really important.
Okay.
So vitamin D synthesis is primarily through UV exposure. Sunlight can also help with seasonal affective disorder, so it can help with regulating your mood.
I've heard about that. Yeah.
Yeah. Which, I definitely feel like I'm much happier on sunny days.
Yeah.
So I don't know if that's directly related, but and there's some evidence to show that sunlight can reduce blood pressure as well.
Right. Okay.
So yeah, there are some really great things. But too much of anything is not great.
Yeah.
And that's where we start talking about the damaging effects.
Right.
So for me, the one of the most damaging mechanisms is that UV can cause DNA damage. And I said before that UVB penetrates into the epidermis.
Yep.
This is where cells called keratinocytes live. And UV can be directly absorbed by the DNA in keratinocytes.
Okay.
And when UV is directly absorbed by DNA, this forms... this changes the shapes of the DNA, the shape of the DNA.
Yeah.
So there's different types of photolesions, but basically what happens is that DNA becomes distorted, and in terms of mutations, they can replicate, they can continue to persist in the cell if they're not repaired properly.
Right.
So I would say, like, if you remember anything, it's that, you know, really what's happening when you're going out into the sun is that it can damage your DNA.
Right.
And this has really big repercussions.
How does that lead to skin cancer, like the damage?
Yeah. So like when that damage, ideally in a healthy situation, there are different proteins that repair those kinks in the DNA.
Yeah.
There's lots of different repair processes that make sure that they can be cut out and DNA will be repaired to its original state.
Right.
But in conditions where, for example, there's a huge amount of sun exposure or there's mutations in the repair systems, that mutation in the DNA gets overlooked.
Right.
And so when that cell replicates, that mutation gets propagated. And that's kind of the origins of... And you know what? That's the origins for skin cancer, but it's also the origins for things like wrinkling and pigmentation. You know, a lot of... the link isn't super strong at this stage, but, you know, it's... For me, it's easy to imagine that, you know, your DNA is like the imprint of everything that happens. And if you, like, damage that, the repercussions are massive.
Right.
From cosmetic to... cancer.
Yeah, and like you said, your dad got a part of his skin like cut out because of melanoma and stuff, right?
Yeah.
And how can some people, like, for example, like die of melanoma?
Yeah, right. So melanoma is it's a really deadly disease.
Bob Marley died of melanoma, right?
Yes. So that's actually a really good point. People, if you're white or coloured, you can still be susceptible to melanoma. So, of course, white people are super susceptible to it, but dark people with dark skin are also susceptible to it. The difference in dark skin populations is that the level of education and awareness is different. So the need to be checked, to have skin checks, is not so commonplace.
Right, okay.
Which means that a lot of melanomas go by undetected until it's at a later stage. And in fact, if you look at the mortality rates of melanoma in dark skinned populations, it's actually higher than in white populations. Yeah.
Wow.
Even though the incidence is quite low. So, yeah, the reason why melanoma is so deadly is because it can metastasize. And this is when the cancer cells kind of break away from where they were originally and get transferred around the body through, like, the blood, for example.
Right.
And so this is when cancers can end up in places where you don't really look, like the soles of your feet or in between your toes. So it's not where the cancer doesn't develop where you get the sun exposure. It can happen at a different site.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
That's deadly.
Literally.
What is like the statistics like for Japanese population?
Yeah, so I'm not going to lie. I don't know the figures off the top of my head. But melanoma and skin cancer is quite low in Asian populations. Again, that comes to what we were saying earlier. The UV isn't as strong in Japan as it is in Australia.
Right.
And also, Asian skin types are much stronger. So, they're usually, we classify them as like skin type 3 or 4, which there's a scale from 1 to 6 to say how reactive your skin is from to sun. And basically it means that a lot of Asian skin types, they brown rather than redden with sun exposure.
Oh, okay. I guess like fair skin,
Yeah.
you know, is like a fashionable in Japan.
Yeah,
Maybe that really that helps as well.
100%. Oh my gosh, you never in Australia see
People don't
anyone.
wanna tan.
Yeah. In Australia, you would never see like a woman with an umbrella.
Yeah,
and, like,
exactly.
Mask and like elbow gloves.
Yeah, people do a lot to like tan themselves as well, like tanning beds and stuff. And okay, just wanted to go into the topic of like pigmentation, like
Yes.
the tanning. How does that work?
Right. So, first of all, tanning is an evolutionary response to UV. Like, we need tanning. Tanning, it's a natural thing that happens. And the reason why it happens, if we think back, way back when, to, you know, before we had society, people, leading into summer, spring comes before summer,
Yeah.
you slowly expose your skin to UV.
Okay.
And so the UV in springtime is quite low. So you gradually build your skin's resistance to the UV.
Right.
And during this process, your skin becomes a little bit brown. And this then protects your skin from further UV radiation. So by the time you hit summer, your skin has kind of like, if we're giving exercise analogies, your skin's like warmed up.
Right.
It's ready to
Thank you for that. Yeah.
big weights. So that's why we pigment. It's an evolutionary protective mechanism. But the SPF of tan skin is like 4, you know.
What do you mean?
Like, okay, so if so sunscreen,
Yeah.
we're very familiar with how sunscreen's ranked. SPF 50
Yep,
plus.
yep.
So an SPF 4 means that basically there's
Doesn't seem like much.
no, there's not a whole lot of sun
Yeah.
protection. So you would never slap on an SPF 4 sunscreen before you go to the beach,
Right.
right? So it's not like the amount of pigmentation we have in our skin is enough to protect ourselves from sun. But I'm just saying there's a small amount of protection
Right.
built in, that base layer.
Okay.
So that's why we pigment. The mechanism of pigmentation, there's like loads.
Really?
There's loads of different ways to look at it.
Right.
But basically, there are cells in our skin called melanocytes, and these are the pigment-producing cells.
Right.
And these can be activated by a variety of different mechanisms. I'm not sure if the whole thing's been mapped out yet, but
Yeah.
you know,
Really?
there are key. Well, you know, our skin is we have to look at it as a holistic
Right.
beast, right? It's not just 2 or 3 different skin types. There's lots of contributing factors from different things. But basically the principle is in the melanocytes there are different enzymes that produce pigment, and once you activate those enzymes and start producing the pigment, that pigment gets transferred into different layers of the skin and so on and so forth.
So people who have like fair skin types, can they not tan because there are something not going right with like producing enzymes in the
Oh, that's a good question. So I'm not so sure about that. The amount of melanin, there's different types of melanin. There's like a dark melanin and a light melanin.
Okay.
And so if you have fair skin or dark skin, it's like the ratio of the 2 different types of melanin that you can produce. But people with dark skin, for example, they aside from the melanin actually plays a really important part in that protective mechanism. So it provides, it's like an umbrella. Yeah. Like it provides this like protective layer to prevent the UV from penetrating down. So yes, more melanin is great. Yeah. But if you don't have that melanin, wear sunscreen.
Right. How do sunscreen work? Like what is it in it that's like stopping the penetration of the rays?
Like such great questions.
Like I've always wondered.
So there's filters. Basically, they're UV filters. Right. And you can either have organic UV filters or inorganic UV filters. And inorganic filters are things like zinc oxide and titanium dioxide. Okay. And these basically act to reflect UV. Ooh. They're like little particles. Okay. And they reflect UV. Growing up in Australia, you know, you've got that zinc.
Yeah, on your cheek.
Yeah. That's what that is.
Your face cricket and stuff like
that.
Yeah.
Fluorescent pink.
Yeah, I love it. Yeah.
So that's like zinc oxide. That's a mineral, inorganic mineral sunscreen that protects from UV. And then, but these are very heavy duty, kind of greasy. They come off white on the skin.
Yeah.
And so for cosmetic applications, they're not really great, which is why there are organic UV filters. And these are chemical compounds that act as chromophores, so they absorb light.
Right.
And then they kind of dissipate light at a lower energy.
Okay.
So the mechanism's different, but they both act to prevent UV from penetrating into the skin layers.
Right. So non-organic is to reflect sunlight, and organic is absorbing it.
Yes.
Absorbing it, though. That doesn't sound like a good thing, though.
Yeah, well, it's a trade-off, isn't it? So they can absorb light, and if they're really good ones, there's loads of different types of filters, and there's different regulations in different countries that permit the use of some over the other. But yeah, there's some that aren't great, so they'll absorb energy, they'll kind of degrade and become photosensitizers. But the trade-off is they do a good job. Not saying don't use them. But they also have a really good skin feel that's not so heavy on the skin.
Right.
So it's a trade-off. Like, do you wear something or do you not wear something? You know.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, that's fair enough. And also, something I was kind of like wanted to ask something about the vitamin D thing that you were talking about. Would you say that there are a lot of like vitamin deficient people in the world, especially for like really cloudy places? You know, when they're not exposed to the sun. Or is that like? Do you think is that? True?
Yeah. So there are definitely yes, to answer your question.
Yeah.
There are definitely some places in the world where people are more vitamin D deficient.
Yeah.
Places that don't get a lot of sun, definitely. It's also a seasonal thing. So during winter, people have lower vitamin D than in summer. But usually vitamin D is fat soluble, so you can store it in your fat.
Ooh.
So people who, for example, have a huge amount of vitamin D in summer, kind of like it carries through the year.
Okay.
So yeah, being fat might be good. Having fat is good.
Right.
But yeah, so people with dark skin often have low vitamin D status.
Right.
Because it's difficult to synthesize vitamin D when you've got that umbrella of melanin pigment. But basically the rule of thumb, and it's very like a hot topic, there's different kind of rules depending on who you ask. In Australia, I'm fairly certain the rule of thumb is exposing like your arms for 10 minutes in the morning or in the afternoon every second day.
Ooh.
This is enough. This is enough, to get a good vitamin.
Oh, so you don't need that much sunlight to be. Oh, okay. And how do you know if you're vitamin D like deficient?
Well,
you don't know.
There's very expensive tests you can do.
Okay.
Like I think they're not covered by most insurance companies and stuff. So you have to pay a bit out of pocket, but it is a blood test, I believe.
Okay.
If you know, I don't know. That's a really good question.
I'm just wondering.
Basically, if you get like 10 minutes of sun every second day, you have a diet that has like fatty fish or...
Fatty fish.
Yeah, fatty fish. Vitamin D fortified milk.
Okay.
Like nuts.
Ooh.
I think like some greens. No, don't quote me on that.
Okay.
If you have a healthy diet, basically, you should be fine.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you for that information. I currently take, I don't know if it's beneficial, I've always wanted to ask this. I take cod liver oil for vitamin A for your skin.
Right.
Does that help?
I don't know, mate. I don't know. I think what's in that? Is it vitamin A only?
No, it's like normal, let's say like DHA, EPA, but it has extra vitamin A than normal fish oil.
Okay. Don't know about that part. Definitely the EPA, really good for your skin.
Okay.
And helps protect against the sun.
Oh.
We did some work on topical EPA for photo protection.
Yep.
Yeah, I'm not sure about that cod liver stuff, to be honest. Take it if it's good for you, if you think it's working.
Yeah, for sure. And like some shops that do sell like fish oil, what should they watch out for? Because, you know, it would say DHA or EPA, but doesn't say how much is in it. Like, how do you know if you're getting enough, like, EPA, DHA?
So, I used to work for a chemical distribution company that had a branch in the nutrition side of things, supplying to supplement companies. So I'm not an expert in it. Just what I heard through them was it really largely depends on where that product is made.
Right.
So there are some countries or some companies that maybe do the dodgy. You know, some places are known for spiking, so that if they do a quality control test, then it's like, oh, it's got all the markers, it's fine. But then there are some places that are more thorough, and you know, it is from the place that they have extracted it from or whatever.
Yeah.
I think it's quite a loosely regulated industry at the moment.
Yeah,
so
it's not tested either, is it? Because there's so
don't
many.
think
Yeah, it's right.
So,
Okay.
I mean, get it from a trusted brand.
Yeah, that's true. And the labels can be really misleading as well, with not just fish oil, but a lot of different, you know, supplement companies.
Absolutely. I think you can do a whole podcast about that one.
Yeah, I don't know. I'm gonna have to get someone on for that, because I really do feel really strongly about this.
I think you should, everyone should be super concerned about what they're putting into their bodies.
Yeah.
And for example, in sport, if you're in a federation that's being drug tested, it's even more important to be vigilant about that.
Yeah, and it's not even only that it doesn't do anything for you. It could be doing some sort of harm for you too. So I don't know. You've got to be really
I mean, who knows if it's been made on a dirty
because it could be, right?
Slap
a label on it, sell it on the market.
I'm fairly certain there have been cases where that has been the case and people have been tested positive. So,
yep. Okay. So let's take the discussion back to the UV exposure. For outdoor athletes such as, you know, I mentioned before, surfers and runners, you know, I don't know, beach volleyball players and stuff like that, they're all at a greater risk, right, of skin damage. Would you say that's fair?
I'm going to ask you a question.
Okay.
Out of all of the Olympic sports,
Yep.
which type of athlete, gender and sport, would you say would be exposed to the most amount of UV during the Olympic tournament?
Oh.
So thinking about what clothes they would wear, time of day they would be playing, the number of rounds they would have to be playing to get to the finals. Which sport?
Oh, I would have said cyclists, but they wear protective gear, right?
Yes.
Oh. No.
They're in the top 3 though. Men's road cycling is in the top 3.
Ooh, okay.
So you're close. What else?
But surfing was. What about surfing?
Surfing
it's this year.
Yeah. Sorry. So the last.
True. Yeah, because we don't have data for that.
Yeah. There was a study that was published last year that went over the footage from the. Was it Rio? Was Rio the last Olympics?
I believe so.
Anyway, they went through all the footage and they used modeling to figure out this sport, and it's female tennis players.
What? Oh.
So it's the length of a tennis match, singles and doubles, the type of clothing that female tennis players wear, the reflection of the surface.
Right.
Why
female though?
Because of what they wear.
Oh, right. True.
Compared to what male tennis
it's
players.
It's a sleeveless
skirts.
Right.
Yeah. So they're exposing a lot of their arms. So female tennis players. I think second was golf players, and then third was road cycling.
I mean, if they're doing that for their career, right? It must be life-threatening in a way, don't you?
Yeah. So there's data to show that outdoor athletes during spring and summer times are exposed to over eight times more UV than the recommended level.
Woo!
And compounding that is what I was saying before about clothing.
Yeah.
Because it's hot, they wear less clothing as well. And a survey done with American athletes showed that less than 25% of outdoor athletes wear sunscreen.
What? Why though?
So it's like everyone else. So it's too bothersome to put on.
Yeah.
You don't put enough on, and people don't reapply.
Right.
These are if you're an elite athlete,
Yeah.
or like a normal bob going down to the beach, it's the same principles.
Well, I don't know, because like if they're doing it their whole lives, you know, I would have assumed that they would have been more aware of that.
You would think, I don't know if in this day and age, the certain sporting bodies are enforcing it. And, you see like cricket players, for example, they're wearing long sleeve stuff. They're being a little bit more vigilant about it. But, sports like golf, for example, using sunscreen, they think that it loosens their grip or like it's slipping. And so golf players actually have this really unique pattern of photo damage where the hand where they wear a glove is like white and the hand where they don't wear a glove is like red.
Whoa.
And there's like a lot of sun damage in that hand. So I guess, performance is one of the...
Yeah, for sure. And, as I said before about the surfing coming in this year for the Olympics, it probably would be, risk. Yeah, I don't know.
Yeah, I think with surfing though, the time spent out on the water might not be super long.
Oh, right.
Maybe.
Okay.
And like in between rounds, they're undercover.
I don't know. Scary stuff though.
Marathon runners though, like,
Yeah.
and there's the number of people participating in marathon running, like even recreationally in Japan as well. It's like massive.
Ooh.
So, yeah, it does impact everyone.
Yeah. And how can... Oh, I guess I was going to ask how can they prevent this? But there are limited ways, right? There's limited ways of how you can protect it. Like, don't go in the sun at certain times, even though that might be impossible. And wearing sunscreen.
So, like, I mean,
there's so much you can do.
There is so much you can do. So the first thing is, like, if you can avoid training outside, then avoid it. If you can do it inside, do it inside.
Oh, okay.
So, like, seeking shade is, like, the first thing.
Right.
The next is wearing the right clothing. Mm-hmm. So if you can do your sport in a long sleeve shirt or with a collar, wear a hat, do it. And, wear sunscreen. So the recommended dose is 2 milligrams per square centimeter.
2 milligrams per centimeter.
Which is not helpful at all, is it?
I don't know what that means.
I reckon, so if you're applying it on your face, if you're applying sunscreen on your face, then put sunscreen in your hand that kind of covers a third of your hand.
Okay. A third of your hand. Oh, yeah, that's a
third of your palm. A third of your palm.
Yeah.
Maybe half your hand. I don't know. But, like, it's quite a bit. So that's how much you need to apply to your face.
Right.
So realistically, you'd probably go through a bottle of sunscreen just to cover your body. And reapply it every 2 hours.
2 hours, okay. And are there, maybe this might be a stupid question, are there colors that help you protect yourself from the sun?
My God. So there are some like technologies around. I haven't seen anything like that on the market yet.
Okay.
It'd be very interesting
Ooh.
if anyone does come out with that first. There are devices like wearable patches, for example, that tell you when to reapply. There's, if you can get your hands on a UV camera,
ooh,
that'll tell you if you've missed any spots. But short of that, there really isn't. Realistically, there's like apps you can get on your phone now that give you a reminder to reapply.
And I've heard when I was living in Australia, avoid the sun from, tell me if I'm wrong, like 11 to 2.
Yeah.
Is the most.
Yeah, but yes.
Yeah. So there are times that you should really avoid the sun.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. So if you can do whatever outdoor exercise before or after those times.
Okay. And like skin damage may be like inevitable for like outdoor athletes, but there are, on the other hand, athletes that deliberately and actively expose themselves to UV rays so that they could benefit themselves or their sport. For example, like recreational bodybuilders, they use it a lot to enhance their physique. And there actually was a study that showed that the use of tanning beds before the age of 35 years old is associated with 75 increased lifetime melanoma risk. Would that be fair to say, maybe?
That would be fair to say.
So, like, first of all, are tanning beds different to being exposed in the sun?
Yes.
They're different.
Yes.
How so?
So they are, obviously they're artificial.
Yeah.
So they are a blend of UVA and UVB, which is what we were saying is the same as the sun. So that's a parallel. It's the intensity of the light coming from the light sources is much higher. And I don't know exactly what the direct correlation would be or like equivalence would be, because it does depend on the bed type, but it's like roughly like a 20-minute session in the sunbed can be equivalent to like 2 hours in the midday sun. So the intensity is really different.
And you can choose the intensity of the beds that you use as well. Like
I wouldn't know. They're illegal in Australia.
They're illegal in Australia?
Yes.
Oh.
Yeah. So a few years ago, it was a slow process. It was like they stopped supplying bed parts, and then they just stopped it altogether. Yeah. So they're illegal in Australia. There's some places in the world where I don't know if the sale is regulated, but definitely they're cracking down on sunbeds. But yeah, I would strongly recommend if you're using it just for bodybuilding purposes that you just stick to spray tans. Reason being is if you have stretch marks, and that's not like exclusive to men or women, like, you know, everyone can get them. Yeah. Our bodies change. You can't actually darken stretch marks. Your whole body will be brown, but your stretch marks will be white. Which doesn't look great.
Oh no.
But spray tans will be more consistent in coverage.
And
why do people stick to sunbeds? Why can't
I think some federations don't allow spray tan.
What?
So they repeatedly use. And I used to.
Oh my god.
And it's not even an occasional thing. It's a regular thing. Like, they go in all the time until their skin is like abnormally dark. You know, it's kind of. I don't know.
Some federations really they prohibit spray tans.
Yeah,
for
they
what
do
reason?
Spot checks. Like when you go on stage, they pat your skin with like a cotton thing, and they're like, "Okay, this is not fake. This is natural."
What would they?
I don't know.
Oh. If that's the case, you shouldn't be wearing anything on stage, right? Complete or natural.
Yeah. And I actually saw that there were increases in the melanoma cases or skin cancer cases. Is that right? Like recently? Is it increasing over time?
Right. So it depends on which country you look at,
Yeah.
And which population group you look at, and age group you look at. The statistics differ. Generally speaking, overall, yes, the number of melanomas are increasing because there are more old people.
Oh, okay.
And melanoma is typically a cancer that develops later on in life. And on that note, back to the indoor tanning thing. Yeah. So, like, young people might think that because they're young, they can go in the tanning bed now and it won't impact them later on in life. Like most things, it's like, oh, like there's time to recover from that later.
Yeah.
You know, just using it once won't matter. But in fact, sun exposure is one of those cases where exposure at a young age can really screw you up later in life.
Yeah, that's what I was going to ask, if there was like an association with, you know, indoor tanning culture and the risk of, you know, skin cancer, you know, increase in skin cancer cases.
Yeah. So I think there's some studies to show that if you have like a handful of sunburn, so this is natural outside, and a handful of natural sunburn events during your adolescence, you're at like a significantly increased risk of developing skin cancer later in life. And the reason is because sun exposure is accumulative.
Right.
So it's like me walking from here to the coffee shop or like walking to the train station, like all that incidental small amount of UV that I'm exposed to every day over the course of a lifetime accumulates. And if you're adding fuel to the fire by doing indoor tanning, you're just accelerating and making it worse. And it's a compound effect. The damage you do now is going to be a much bigger deal in 20, 30 years time. So if you are a serious...
People don't know that.
No, people don't know that.
That's scary.
Yeah, so and that's also why sun protection in children in schools is like super important.
Right.
Because you really have to protect your kids at a young age to prevent them from getting cancer later on in life. Because it's one of those things that doesn't happen overnight. It does take a long while to develop, and you have to be super proactive about it. So, as a bodybuilder now might be okay, but if you plan on competing into your 30s and 40s, then you're going to probably have a lot of difficulties. And aside from cancer, it's like wrinkling, sagging.
Right. Wrinkling, sagging.
Yeah, everything's sagging.
I don't want that, sure. Are there any ways, they need to tan indoors, right? Are there any ways that they could make this less dangerous?
So I would say, generally speaking, if you're a white human being, you should really avoid tan boots at all costs.
Yeah, or compete in a different federation.
Compete in a different federation, exactly. There are some people who need to use suntan boots for medical reasons. They're okay.
Yeah.
I mean, I would be a very bad health professional if I said anything that supported that.
What about like spray tans? Are they're okay?
Yeah, so I think a few years ago there was a little bit of debate whether this like a spray in an aerosol format was healthy for you because you could inhale some of the chemicals, and the main active component of spray tans is dihydroxy acid, DHA. Maybe fact check that for me. Okay. And inhalation of that isn't great. But there's loads of creams and stuff, and they all react on the surface of your skin. They all act to cross-link proteins on your skin to form a Maillard reaction, a browning of the skin. So very safe. It's just on the surface of the skin.
And I also came across this tanning lotion thing, right? You put it on like in the shower. Yeah. And then you come out of the shower, and then days go by, you darken. Your skin darkens. Yeah, there's some really false productivity now lately. I don't know if that's damaging or not.
No. I don't see any reason why that would be.
Yeah.
I'm very pro.
Yeah. Do you self-tan?
Of course.
Really? You're not very Japanese there.
What? No, God, no. I mean, I'm saying all this. I'm saying all this bad stuff about sun.
Yeah.
But I also like to be.
Yeah, for sure.
And Australia has some great products.
Oh, really? What are some products?
Bondi Sands.
You can't get it here, right? Oh, yeah, maybe. Okay. Nice.
Ecotan's another great Australian brand.
Yeah.
They're like very natural, and the founder of that company, she has a really great story. She's she really wanted to make tanning products that were safe for the skin.
Yeah.
What else is there?
Yeah. I don't know. Yeah, there are a few, so maybe do that instead of using tanning beds as well. What about gels? Like before you go into a tanning bed, people are like, okay, put this gel on and you'll be fine.
Right. No, I don't know about that. Can you tell me more?
I don't know. It's like you protect your skin from any damages when you're putting on gel all over your body. It's like a clear gel.
So the mechanism for skin pigmentation and skin damage, DNA damage, it's all the same.
Right. So pigmentation equals skin damage.
Yes, correct.
Whoa. So there are no ways that you could tan without damaging your skin?
There was a sun cancer council ad in Australia a few years ago. It was something along the lines of there's no such thing as a healthy tan.
Oh, damn. Okay. Oh no. Except for not artificial, tanning creams and stuff like that. Yeah. Okay. Okay. So I want to slowly transition into the next topic about sweating. I've actually heard from a lot of people that, I work out and I sweat after training, and then this is like causing so much it's causing my skin to break out and stuff like that. Is this true, or is it because it's due to poor hygiene?
Are they dirty humans? So sweat by itself cannot lead to acne formation. Something I see here in Japan, which I really don't get, is people training with makeup on.
Yeah.
Which is so bizarre for me. So it's accumulation of wearing makeup, some makeup, sweating, sebum. That's all kind of melting down your face when you train, and if you don't get rid of that can clog your pores,
right?
And that can lead to breakouts. So it's not sweat by itself. No, it's it's a few different factors, but basically good hygiene.
Because sweating actually removes some of the dirt out of your skin, right?
Yeah, sweating's fantastic.
Yeah, there you go.
Wearing makeup at the gym is not.
Yeah, that's true. Okay. What about after a workout, you wipe your body with alcohol wipes. You have in the convenience stores here Gatsby.
They're great, aren't they? The cooling wipes.
Yeah.
Oh my god, they're an amazing.
Is that? No, I just have this feeling, right? I wipe it, and it's a little bit. It feels weird in my skin. I wonder if it's clogging my pores or anything.
No, I think they wouldn't be clogging your pores. They'd be cleaning them, but they'd also be drying your skin.
Oh,
so
okay.
Any alcohol-based stuff would be drying your skin. So you'd probably want to be careful of that. But saying that, during summertime, those wipes are amazing.
Yeah.
I've sent so many back to Australia.
Oh, really?
Yeah, for
Do
summer.
they not have it?
No,
not the cooling one.
Not the cooling one.
Oh, okay.
They are so good. Oh my god, it's for me, I love it. I gave them to one of my mates and she's like, no, this is stinging my skin.
Yeah. It's kind of painful at the start, right? But you get used to it. No, because I hear a lot of things. That's actually what I heard from someone, that they block your pores.
Oh, I haven't seen anything to suggest that. But, prove me wrong.
People can say anything nowadays. And I'm like, oh, what? Really? Or maybe it does. Oh, it feels really different.
Those cooling wipes, I wouldn't use them on my face. That's for sure. That would be painful.
Yeah.
But take a towel to the gym. Shower, wash your face.
Be clean. Right. Okay. So sweating could possibly, be good for your skin, maybe. Even.
Yeah. Well, the most important role sweating plays is in regulating your body temperature.
Yeah.
And that's super important all around. And your skin plays a really big role in regulating the temperature. So interestingly, your body core temperature is 37 degrees.
Yeah.
Your skin temperature is much lower. It's 33 degrees.
Ooh.
That's an interesting fact for you right there.
It is. Yeah, I never knew that.
So your skin's normally at 33 degrees and the maximum temperature it can get to naturally is 40 degrees. So when you go out in the sun and you're sunbaking, for example, your skin can go up to 40 degrees. It doesn't go much higher than that.
Okay.
And that's from the infrared component of sunlight. So sunlight is UV, visible light, and infrared radiation. And in infrared is heat.
Okay.
So your skin under sunlight gets to 40 degrees, but there's lots of buffering mechanisms to keep it at that. Your body internal temperature can also increase from exercise, from whatever. And your body's natural response is to sweat, to cool down the skin, to keep it at that normal temperature. So sweat plays a really important role in that. Interestingly, so there are conditions where your body temperature isn't regulated so well, or your skin temperature isn't regulated so well. And in the case of, if we go back to outdoor sports, outdoor sport athletes, UV can actually, typically the blood circulation in your skin is regulated very closely by nitric oxide. But under UV exposure, the UV can actually inhibit vasodilation, which means that blood flow to your skin is limited.
Okay.
So this can really screw things up when it comes to body temperature regulation. So you've got your blood not going to the skin surface, which means that your body temperature isn't cooling down. You've got the sun beaming down on you, which means your temperature is like being kept at 40 degrees.
Yeah.
And this can lead to your temperature not regulating properly. So yes, sweat's really important to making sure that whole process.
What?
You might want to follow up on that. I'm not going to lie, I'm not an expert in that field, but I have read up about it.
Because, like nowadays, like exercise is beneficial for a lot of things.
Yeah.
Like we found there are a lot of like increasing studies on the effects on the brain or like cardiorespiratory functions and stuff like that. I wonder if you can say the same for the biggest organ in the body.
Yeah. I'm not going to lie, I think it's a fairly unexplored field.
Yeah.
What can we say? Sweat. Yes, sweat would help with moisture.
Yeah.
Exercise.
Maybe diet is more closely linked factor to a healthy skin.
Yes, but that's been very well established already. I think there are certain movements you can do. There are some concepts out there that is like treating your face like a gym workout.
Ooh. I can do that.
So like moving your face in a certain way can help with firmness, skin firmness and elasticity.
Okay.
It's all elastin and collagen after all. There's some, I think there's some fields of beauty where it's like doing yoga for beauty or doing certain movements to help with visual aesthetics.
Okay.
But I don't know how much science
What
is backed up.
about one of those like rolling things on your face?
They're crazy, hey? They're crazy expensive.
Do they work?
So there is some evidence to show that like mechanical stimulation of your face can help with skin firmness.
Oh.
And I think that's what the concept is with that.
Okay. What about things that you put in your mouth and it's like a...
Like a bird.
Yeah. It's crazy, right? Like if I saw anyone doing that.
Yeah.
What is going on?
I'm not gonna lie. I don't know.
I mean,
There's a lot of
it's cool, but I don't know if it's cool.
I think it's a really unexplored space, and I think it'd be really interesting to see what happens there. And but who will fund these things? It's a lot. Maybe a lot of the cosmetic companies might be interested in that. I think there's a real push at the moment in terms of trends in the cosmetic industry to look at beauty as a holistic thing. So it's not just what's happening to the skin, but various other lifestyle factors.
Yeah.
You said diet before. That's one thing. Exercise is another thing. So kind of looking at what happens with exercise and blood flow in the skin and how this impacts skin would be one area. Looking at exercise and hormones.
Yeah, I thought something like that would be impacting on the skin as well. So there's not many research done about that yet.
Not that I'm aware of.
Yeah, very exciting.
Very exciting. There's looking at like sunscreen and sunscreen and sport.
Yeah.
But,
I don't know. I was hoping you'd say, "Oh, maybe powerlifting can help your skin in the way."
Exercise, it could only do good things.
Yeah.
Hopefully. I'm not sure if powerlifting would be the best.
I don't know. I honestly don't think powerlifting is that beneficial for many things, to be honest.
It's great if you need to lift up a heavy sofa when you're moving houses.
Once every year. Beneficial. Okay, so we're just like coming up on time. It's like an hour now. What? Okay, bit of a personal question. How do you manage your time? Like, because you do a lot of things, right? Like, you're not you're not unsocial either. Like, you're a very social person. Like, you work, you also train, you have lots of friends. Like, how do you manage your time?
When I first moved to Japan, nearly 3 years ago now.
Wow.
I was like very routine with my lifestyle and trying to get 8 hours of sleep and trying to get all my stuff done and training, and it was so stressful. Definitely really good time management, because life as a scientist, it's not just your schedule you have to worry about. It's like your cells and the experiments that you're running as well. And these don't run on a normal workday schedule. Some experiments, take 10 hours to do or whatever. So you definitely have to allow for a certain degree of flexibility in your life. And if you have a training program that's like, I got to train 5 days a week and do all this kind of stuff, then it's kind of impossible to function.
Got to make some sacrifices.
Yeah, sacrifices, but also just have an open mind and be flexible. Like, if I can't do something on this day, then I'll do it on another.
Yeah, don't just stress out about it.
Yeah, exactly. Like, work will always be there tomorrow. So if it's like manageable work, then you just leave it and you leave it for the next day. But, unfortunately, as a scientist, it can be the schedule can be out of your hands.
Yeah, I can imagine.
And you just got to allow for that flexibility.
Okay. Open mind.
Have an open mind. Just go with the flow.
Just go with the flow. Very Australian though. And also, last few questions. What are some daily things that listeners can keep in mind when it comes to like keeping good skin health? Daily thing.
A good question, because you really don't need all the bells and whistles.
Yeah.
That's probably not great for my industry. But really, you need to wash your face every day. Wash your face, moisturize your face, and wear sunscreen.
Okay.
They're the only 3 things you need to do.
There you go.
Keeping it simple.
Wash your face,
moisturize your face, and sunscreen.
3 things.
3 things. Important. If you can't do those things, those 3 things.
Hard. Okay, sunscreen. I don't wear sunscreen. Oh, okay, I'll definitely keep that in mind. And where can people follow your work, maybe?
It is a bit hard because I have been a researcher in a company.
Yeah. All right. Okay. What if people want to like ask you questions?
Shoot me an email.
I'll write it.
Yeah, why not? Happy to answer any questions.
I doubt they got a message, but we'll see.
Oh, please do.
Okay.
Especially if you live in Japan. Always looking for new mates.
Yeah, there you go. And maybe they can they maybe like search your name?
They can definitely search my name.
Bianca McCarthy.
Bianca McCarthy.
Yeah.
I think there's a couple of us on the internet.
I think oh yeah, there are a few, but the first one is you. Oh. Yeah, and there's a photo of you. You don't look like you.
Thanks.
You don't look like you in the photo, but it's definitely you.
I'm going to take that as a compliment.
Well, thank you for making the time today, Bianca. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Okay, see you later.
Bye.
Bye. There we have it. I hope you learned something on this episode, because I definitely have. If you enjoy listening to Barbell Radio, make sure you like this episode, or follow or subscribe to the channel on whatever you're listening on, if you haven't already. Shout out to Adapt Inc. for supporting this. I could not do it without their tech help. They are a consulting company that makes tourism in Japan a lot easier. I'm trying to release an episode every Sunday, switching between Japanese and English. So if you have any episode or guest ideas, feel free to message me on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram on Barbell Radio. Okay, thank you so much for listening again, and see you next week.